One thing that I tend to say more and more in public, I tended not to say much in public in the past, is that in cities, traffic congestion is our friend. There are a lot of things that inevitably happen with congestion that are good for us as a community, that people respond to congestion in ways that are good for the community. And I'll give you an example, several examples of why that's the case. First, with congestion, some people are more willing to live in mixed-use, compact, higher-density development, in-town development. They're more willing to do that because they want to escape some of the congestion, so we see more people that want to live that way, which is good for the community. We have less sprawl with traffic congestion because now, with congestion, you have what's called the time tax. People have to pay a time tax in congestion. They have to get delayed. They're paying with their time. Time tax means people need to live closer to get back to that 1.1 hour travel time budget. So traffic congestion results in less sprawl. There is less, on a regional basis, and this is something that we almost always fail to understand or see. We think the opposite. Oftentimes they justify road widenings to say that road widenings will result in less gas consumption, less air pollution. On a regional basis, road widening causes more air pollution and more gasoline consumption. Okay, traffic congestion results in less air pollution and less gas consumption because what happens with congestion is that we start shaving off the more low-value car trips. Okay, the bobbies are doing less travels to the video stores to rent the videos in congestion. And so the low-value trips start going away. Overall, on the regional basis, you have less gas consumption, less air pollution as a result of congestion. So it's really not the case that congestion on a regional basis causes more air pollution and more gasoline consumption. So be very careful about that argument. One of the biggest sources, if not the biggest source, of noise pollution in cities is car travel. Okay, a huge problem in cities and quality of life is noise pollution, and the biggest source almost always is car travel. As cars move faster, there's much more noise pollution. Traffic congestion slows down car speeds, therefore results in less noise pollution in cities. Traffic congestion also reduces the severity of car crashes. At lower speeds, the car crashes are less severe. We also, as I said earlier, we also tend to see better transit, bicycle, and walking facilities, partly because the level of citizen discontent rises dramatically with traffic congestion. People can't stand it. They go screaming and yelling at their elected officials saying they must do something. One of the things that's often done, especially in bigger cities with a lot of congestion, is they start building better facilities, transit facilities, bicycle facilities, and walking facilities to respond to the congestion. So the congestion, again, delivering something beneficial for our community. Another beneficial aspect is that there is more non-car travel with congestion, because that's one way to escape congestion, is to escape your car. Again, a benefit of congestion. More healthy housing and local retail. Okay? Large big box retail benefits from a lack of congestion because they need to serve a regional consumer shed. Congestion makes it more difficult. Congestion is better for compact, higher density, infill residential development, which is beneficial to small, locally owned businesses. Okay? Also, housing, of course, is going to be improved with congestion because now there's less likely a desire to flee the city. There's more of a desire to come in and live closer in town, higher density residential to cope with the congestion. So housing actually improves with congestion. This is a concept that I really try to emphasize in my forthcoming book, the crucial importance of controlling size for quality of life for a city. Very, very important that we control size for quality of life. David Money agrees and makes that point. It's essential for urban designers to control size for quality of life. It's really the key way for us to have a quality human habitat in cities, is to control size. This is a series of images that helps us to understand the size problem. This is what 40 people on bicycles and on foot walking on the sidewalk look like. 40 people on bicycles and on foot. This is what 40 people look like on a bus. This is 40 people sitting in chairs. And this is 40 people in cars. Okay? Complete gridlock. I want to dwell on this for a few minutes. There are some important issues here. First of all, it really puzzles me as a city planner to often hear people say that the density proposed in this project is intolerably high. It's crazy. It's Too many people. It's just awful. It'll cause all kinds of problems. This density is way, way too high. And it puzzles me because when I go to Europe, I see densities that are much higher than what's proposed here in America. And the development's often quite nice, quite pleasant. And so I'm thinking to myself, why is there such huge, huge opposition to even low densities here in America? I think these images help us understand that. All right? What's happening is that it's not so much that we have too many people, it's that we have too many people in cars. Now, on average, a person sitting in a car takes up 17 times as much space as a person sitting in a chair. That's an enormous consumption of land. About 300 square feet of land is needed for a parking space. That's a lot of city land to be providing for each individual in a car. A lot of land, a huge amount of space consumption by cars. The Gigantism Disease is a disease that I believe is really one of the most powerful ways in which cities in America are dying. The Gigantism Disease is more than anything else, I think, destroying human habitat, quality human habitat. And let's see some examples of what I mean by gigantism. Cars consume so much space that they're creating these massive structures that dwarf us as humans. We feel like little tiny ants and insignificant specks of life when we stand up next to these monstrous facilities being used to accommodate the big cars. Okay, just massive, massive gigantism problems that are destroying the human habitat. Okay, you know, and I'll say one thing about this too, is that as we expand the car habitat, the human habitat shrinks. Okay, and this is a great example of that. The human habitat shrinking when we build these monster, gigantic facilities. We also have monstrous geographic sizes for our communities. The suburban sprawl endlessly moving in all directions, creating endless residential sprawl in all directions. The size, geographic size of communities is also very important for quality of life and the gigantism disease. Do cities need more open space? I often hear this. I often hear people say the solution to better cities is we want more open space. That'll make our city better. More open space, more open spaces. I hear that all over and over again. I hear it as a mantra. More open space. Let's look at this. Let's look at this and see that, you know, it seems to me like in the suburban sprawl locations, we've got plenty of open space. But almost all that open space is being used up by cars. You know, roads and parking is where all the open space is in our cities. When we look at some contrasting images of other cities, modest sizing, modest human-scaled spacing, modest sizes. I argue that almost always cities need less open space, not more. We need less open space for quality of life. To improve the quality of life of cities, almost always we want to reduce sizes, not more open space. We want less open space and creating these fantastically wonderful, charming, romantic, human-scaled spaces in our cities. Forgiving car street design. For several decades now, we've been designing what's known as the forgiving street, the street in which traffic engineers are seeing people crash into trees. They crash into parked cars, on-street parked cars, sometimes into buildings. And the common sense solution for those traffic engineers is to remove those obstacles. That'll reduce crashes, right? Seems like common sense. What happens unintentionally, though, is that we remove those things, and what we're doing is we're forgiving people for high-speed, inattentive driving. Okay, they drive off the road because they're driving too fast or too recklessly, and we forgive them by having all those obstacles removed. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know the result of what will happen. We make it easier to drive recklessly and at high speeds and inattentively because now the consequences are less. So guess what? We have more reckless driving, more speeding, more inattentiveness, you know, more cell phone use, more makeup going on while we're driving because we can get away with it on the forgiving road. So the forgiving road, unintentionally, surprisingly perhaps, gives us less safe roads because we can get away with driving less safely, more recklessly, more inattentively. The forgiving road also creates a false sense of security. We think we can get away with driving without paying attention or driving at high speeds, and so we do. We have a false sense of security that we are immune to crashes, more so than in the past. It also breeds lower skilled driving skills. Our driving skills are declining in America because of the Forgiving Road paradigm. People are less skilled in driving because they need less skills to drive without crashing, so they can pay attention less, they are less skilled, and there's a downward spiral in American driving skills. Important for us to contrast between fire safety and life safety. Oftentimes fire engineers will say, we need wider roads because we want to have quicker response times to fires to save lives in fires. Well, studies show that the number of injuries and deaths that are caused by car crashes is much higher than the number of injuries and deaths from fires. So what happens is that we widen roads to increase fire response times to save lives. We actually see a net reduction overall in community injuries and deaths because now more people on the wider, higher speed roads are getting into car crashes causing injuries and deaths than are being saved by faster response times by fires, by fire trucks getting to fires faster. That's overwhelmed by the increase in crashes and deaths caused by wider, higher speed roads. So it's crucial that we keep in mind that the community focus needs to be on the broader umbrella of life safety and not the small subset of fire safety if we want as an objective to reduce overall deaths and injuries in our communities. Life safety is more encompassing and oftentimes means that we're not going to want to widen the roads because we need to maximize our health and safety, and the big way to do that in most cases is to keep our roads modest in size, keep our streets low speed, keep attentive motorist driving behavior. This is an example of the forgiving street paradigm. This is what we see almost always. This is what's delivered to us in the forgiving street design. The big wide roads, the big forgiving high-speed roads, encouraging a lot of inattentive driving, very unsafe place to be despite what we thought initially when we built these kinds of roads for more safety. So what I argue for is we need to design roads to obligate attentiveness. Attentive roads is the road to better design safety. Better safety with more attentiveness. Don't forgive people for driving recklessly or too high speed. Okay? Now, a guy by the name of Hans Monderman, a traffic engineer, Dutch traffic engineer, was making the point around the country these days that he's finding that it's important for us to move more in the direction of what he calls naked streets. He believes naked streets are more safe. One way he does that is he says, let's remove some of these cautionary signs we have on the sides of roads that are giving us a false sense of security. He says that the cautionary signs need to be removed to give the motorist more of a need to pay attention and drive slower, to not create the sense that things are going to be forgiven or that things are under control and safety is being watched out for. The signs deliver that kind of message. So he recommends that we remove the clutter of safety signs. He also recommends, by the way, that we start removing the striping on streets. We start removing things like traffic signals, crosswalks. He argues that those things are all reducing motorist attentiveness. And to have better safety, you want more motorist attentiveness. And safety features on roads actually reduce motorist attentiveness, which increases safety problems. Instead, we need more in the way of traffic calming and street friction. We need to obligate motorists to drive more slowly and therefore more attentively. They have to pay attention more so than the forgiving design. They're forced to pay attention because the road is more constrained, it's more narrow, and the motorist has to pay attention much more so, therefore more safety.